Hi, my name's Lee Jasper. This is Brixton, London, and you're watching Lee Jasper Drive Time. So I want to talk about knife crime and I want to talk about violence in our communities. But we have a disproportionate number of black deaths in our community, that's for sure. There's no point denying that. But there are only still a very small amount of crimes that are committed in terms of knife crime murders in our community. That with 1.2 million black people in London and probably even if you say 50 murders a year, which is high, and we're nowhere near that figure as of yet, I don't think, and it still represents 0.4% of London's black population. Is that 98% of all black youth in the United Kingdom did not, I repeat, get in trouble with the criminal justice or have any contact with the criminal justice system last year. And yet, when you look at the newspapers, when you look at the media reporting, we're being described as having a knife crime epidemic. Well, if you want to call it an epidemic, I think the World Health Organization describes any infection rate that is above 7.7% as an epidemic. 0.4% within the black community, it's not an epidemic. We've seen calls and calls for more money for policing, more money for stop and search. Sadiq Khan has gone back to pull the big shiny stop and search lever, boom, to try and solve the knife crime problem. It's got no chance. And I'll tell you why. As Director of Policing for London, when Ken Livingstone was in power, I had more money, more police officers, 100% increase on the stop and search that you currently see now, and we had more murders in the capital than we do now. How does that work if policing numbers are the solution to knife crime? They're not. The Policing College of Policing, published a report last year that said there's no relation to the incidence of stop and search and its effective tool in stopping serious violence. London needs more police officers, not because they make a greater impact upon stop and search, but because people need policing reassurance in their local communities. They want to see the local police officer in their area every day, the same person, building up relationships, building up trust. Those officers work brilliantly. They know who the bad guys and who the good guys are in any particular community, and that is affecting our ability to police knife crime. Because two things are happening. People will not give intelligence. Communities won't give intelligence to the police service if they think the police service is racist as hell and cannot be trusted. And secondly, if you haven't got a decent witness protection scheme for those who want to give evidence, why should people want to come forward? And in our communities, we've just suffered 8 years of austerity. It is the magnifying glass that has amplified poverty and disadvantage in our communities. You can't police your way out of a knife crime problem. The problem with violence in communities is related to their poverty, not their culture or their skin colour. It's got nothing to do with race. It's not as though black people are more violent than anybody else. The World Health Organization is very clear. It says that in order to tackle violence, you have to treat it like a virus. It says that violence can be contagious. That if you grow up in a household where domestic violence is prevalent, you will, as a child, be prone to violence. Well, that youth has been brought up most likely in a household where his mother was the victim of domestic violence. Domestic violence murders far exceed teenage knife crime murders. If you're going to tackle violence, then you have to deal with the whole totality of violence in a community. The rationality of the Western mind in policy terms wants to put everything in little boxes. Let's have youth violence. Let's tackle youth violence. So if you're not dealing with domestic violence, you won't be dealing with knife violence. And if you're dealing with knife violence, but you're not dealing with the sexual rape and abuse of young girls, you're not dealing with the whole totality of violence. In different areas, violence is played out in different ways. In London, in our community, given the enormity of the drugs economy that sits right in the middle of these high unemployment 55% black youth unemployment on average in London. But those drug economies sit in the middle of communities that are desperately poor of services, high unemployment, high poverty, high single parent rates. I'm saying to the black community, you can't rely on checks from downtown, the Home Office, the government or anyone else to save your kids. We should become much more economically independent so that we can fund our own services, mental health services, after school services, youth intervention services, so we can make a difference. And I think empowered communities are the best place to do that. Give them the tools to do the job, they will get the job done. And so you can see that a public health approach has to deal with everything, every part of the infection. And it means investing in early intervention. Not more policing, more maternity nurses. Not more jails, but more community youth centres and development workers. Surely the first priority of any generation is to invest in the future of its own children. And regardless of what the government is or isn't doing, we should be funding our own responses. To put together a public health campaign that is truly community-led. And that's going to focus on getting the assets of the black community mobilised to support a reduction in violence. That's going to focus on getting what money is available from central and local government invested in early prevention and rehabilitation. And instead, we get the inglorious sight of a mayor of London and a Home Secretary arguing about policing funding whilst waving the shrouds of dead black children. So, increase money for policing? No. Evidence tells us it's not going to work. Increase money for investment in public health? Yes. Big tick in the box. It's shown and proven to be able to reduce knife crime. But you've got to allow communities to lead. It's disgusting. So that's Lee Jasper on the issue of public health. I hope that's been somewhat enlightening in a debate that is alternating between heavy enforcement, more racism and more ineffective policing on our streets. We say turn that around, adopt public health and early intervention. Well, that was it for this week on violence. We'll be back next week and we'll be back every week. I want you to tune into this show. It's probably the only area where you're going to get this unbiased, unvarnished, black community perspective on the big issues of the day. Take care. Have a good week.
Good. Okay, let's do the short.